Divya coughed twice and fell down. His wife Tasha rushed and held him as if she wanted him to leave. It all started like most love stories do, with laughter, promises, and warm night walks under the stars. Her name was Tasha. She was the village beauty, calm like the river after rainfalls. She believed in love, and when Divya came into her life with sweet words and powerful eyes, she gave him her heart without asking for much. They got married young. People danced and the drums spoke of joy. But soon after their wedding, Divya changed. He would come home late, sometimes drunk, sometimes with lipstick stains on his shirt. Tasha cried many nights, hugging her pillow tightly, so her sobs wouldn't wake the neighbors. She begged him, knelt before him, wrote him letters. She even tried fasting and prayer, asking God to change him. But Divya was like a river that refused to stay in its path. When Tasha got pregnant, she hoped it would soften him. She dressed in the finest clothes, used the best perfumes she could afford. She painted her lips red and smiled at him with eyes full of hope, even though her back ached and her feet swelled. But Divya didn't stop. Instead, he got worse. One day, she followed him quietly and saw him kissing a girl not older than her younger sister at the back of a local hotel. The girl giggled like it was all a game. Divya looked into the girl's eyes with the same eyes he once looked into hers with. Tasha stood there, frozen, one hand over her growing belly, the other gripping the metal fence like it was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. Her baby kicked, and she took it as a sign and message. That night, she didn't cry. She cooked fufu with bitter leaf soup, his favorite. She served it with a smile. Divya laughed. He didn't know she had mixed the powder with the soup. A small sachet a woman in the market had given her. The woman wore a wrapper that smelled like smoke and loss. She said, "This one will make him sleep forever. But once you do it, your own soul will never rest." Tasha replied softly, "My soul has not rested in 3 years." As Divya ate, she sat across the table and watched him, every swallow echoing like thunder in her ears. He thanked her. He said, "Tasha, you tried today. This one sweet well." She nodded, then he coughed twice. Blood came out of his mouth, mixing with the soup on his lips. He fell. Tasha rushed to him and held him, crying as if she wanted him to leave. She whispered, "You didn't stop. When I begged you to stop, I gave you everything, even when I had nothing." He tried to speak, but his breath failed him, and then silence, not the silence of peace, but the silence of an empty and lifeless heart. Tasha sat there, still holding him. The baby inside her kicked again. She whispered, "You will never be like your father." But deep inside her, she knew she had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The next morning, the sun rose like any other day. Birds sang. But inside Tasha's room, the air was heavier than death. Divya's lifeless body lay cold on the floor. Tasha was still sitting beside him, her hands stained with dry tears and soup. Her eyes were empty. Not because she didn't feel anything, but because she felt everything all at once. When Mama Sefa, their neighbor, came to ask for salt and saw Divya on the ground, she screamed so loud the whole compound gathered. Tasha didn't speak, cry, nor run. She only whispered, "I gave him food. After eating he coughed and died." The police came. They found the plate of soup. They saw the traces of powder under the table, the one she had tried to wipe off but forgot in her shock. They arrested her. As they dragged her away, the villagers gathered. People who once clapped for her on her wedding day now pointed fingers. She killed him. Witch. Poisonous snake with a beautiful face. She has always been too quiet. I knew it. Even old Mama, who Tasha once helped in fetching water, turned her back. A woman that kills her husband is worse than the devil, she said. At the station, Tasha said the same words over and over. I didn't kill him. I didn't poison the food. I loved him. She cried until her voice became a whisper, but they didn't believe her. Even her own mother, who came to visit her, stood on the other side of the iron bars and asked, Tasha, tell me the truth. Did you do it? Tasha looked at her, lips trembling. Mama, I was tired, but I didn't want him to die. I only wanted him to change. The police officer laughed. You gave him death, he said. She was charged with murder. Her trial was set, and while she sat in the cold, dark cell, pregnant and alone, the village moved on. The same girls who Divya used to flirt with started gossiping loudly. One woman is not enough for some men. I heard she caught him with another girl and lost her mind. I heard she bought the poison in Onisha market. But only a few saw the truth. Only a few remembered the times Divya walked around with swollen eyes, pretending she hit her head on a door, and the day she stood in church, praying with shaking hands. Also the love she once gave Divya that was never enough. Her friend, Mokas, was one of the few who believed her. She visited her in prison and held her hand through the bars. I know you didn't mean to kill him. I know how much you suffered. But Tasha, you should have left. You should have walked away. Tasha looked down. Her baby kicked again. I was carrying his child. I thought if I loved him more, he would stop. Mokas cried, Tasha, love is not a burial ground. You don't have to die there. Tasha closed her eyes and whispered, but I did. Long before he did. The prison cell was dark and cold. Rain beat against the small window like angry hands. Tasha sat on the floor, her arms wrapped around her belly, rocking back and forth. The pain had started, slowly, then all at once, she screamed. The prison wardens came running. She's in labor. One shouted. They rushed her to the small clinic inside the prison. There was no doctor. Just one nurse with tired eyes and rough hands. Tasha screamed again, biting her lips to hold in the pain. She didn't want to cry. She had already cried too much in this life. After hours of pushing and shouting, the baby arrived, a boy, innocent. Unaware of the fire he was born into, the nurse held him up. Congratulations. You have a son. Tasha didn't answer. She looked at her baby and whispered, you don't deserve this kind of beginning. She named him Shima, my God knows. But deep in her heart, she feared the world would call him the murderer's child. 3 months later, the court trial began. Tasha stood in front of everyone with her baby wrapped in a faded wrapper on her back. Her feet were chained, but her spirit wasn't. She looked tired. Her face had sunken, but her eyes still carried the strength of a woman who had suffered and survived. The courtroom was packed, old friends, family and strangers. The judge looked down at her through thick glasses. The prosecutor stood tall, holding papers and pride. She killed her husband in cold blood, he said. She poisoned his food after he returned from work. She was jealous. She was tired of being ignored. She snapped. Tasha didn't say a word, not yet. Then Mokas was called to the stand. She was in pain, Mokas said. I watched her beg him for love. She dressed up even while pregnant. She never wanted this. The judge asked, did you ever hear her say she would kill him? No, Mokas said, crying. She only said, I wish he could feel the pain I feel. The prosecutor smiled. That's motive. Then a surprise happened. The woman from the market, the one who gave Tasha the powder, came to the court. She had been caught selling herbs illegally. The police forced her to testify. She looked at Tasha and said, "I warned her. I told her not to use too much. She wanted him to fall sick, not die." Gas filled the courtroom. She said she only wanted to scare him. Just a little sickness, nothing more. She didn't know it was too strong. Tasha fell to her knees and cried. The courtroom became silent. Even the judge removed his glasses. "She didn't kill him out of hate," the old woman continued. "She killed him out of heartbreak. Out of years of watching her love rot while she tried to clean it." The judge leaned forward. "So, it was never her plan to kill?" The woman nodded. "She only wanted him to stop cheating." After a long moment of silence, the judge spoke. Her actions were wrong. She took the law into her hands. A life is lost. But I see the pain. I see the sorrow. She is not a criminal. She is a broken woman who lost her way. The sentence was changed. Instead of life in prison, she was given 10 years with the option of appeal. Tasha cried, not because she was going to prison, but because for the first time, someone saw her pain. As the guards led her away, she looked back at her baby. He smiled in his sleep, and she whispered, "One day, you'll know the truth. But I pray it doesn't break you the way it broke me." The prison gates opened with a loud screech, like a wound being reopened. Tasha stepped in with her baby on her back, holding a small bag that had nothing but a wrapper, feeding bottle, and her court papers. Her feet were tired. Her soul felt heavier than the chains she used to wear in court. She was now prisoner 311, but the other women didn't see her as a number. They saw her as the woman who killed her husband. In the corner of the prison yard, one woman with a scar across her face whispered, "She fed her husband death with a spoon." Another replied, "How can she still carry that baby? That child is born in blood." Tasha heard every word, but she kept quiet, because pain had taught her silence. That night, she lay on her iron prison bed, cradling her baby. The baby cried loud and long, the kind that shakes even walls. One woman threw her pillow across the cell. "Tell that bastard child to shut up." Tasha held him tighter. She whispered, "You're not a bastard. You're my son. You're the only light left in my life." But things got worse. 2 weeks later, while washing clothes near the prison pump, Tasha noticed her baby's feeding bottle missing. She searched the whole place. Nothing. Then she heard laughter. 3 women sitting under the tree were mocking her. "She thinks prison is a nursery," one said. "She should have killed the child too," another spat. Tasha stood up, shaking and tears in her eyes, but she didn't fight, not yet. She went back inside, sat in a corner, and cried into her wrapper. Later that night, her baby started coughing. She rushed to the prison nurse. The nurse gave her 2 tablets and said, "That's all we have. Don't waste it." She didn't sleep that night. She sang lullabies with a cracked voice, praying the cough wouldn't turn to something worse. The walls listened. The rats in the corner paused. Even the other women grew quiet, because that night they saw a mother, not a killer, just a woman with a child and a broken heart. 3 days later, something strange happened. The prison chaplain came to give the women old books and Bibles from a donation. Tasha took one, not for religion, but for comfort. She opened it that evening, hoping to find peace, but inside the Bible, tucked in the middle pages, was an envelope, old and torn. Her name was written on it, Tasha. It was her husband's handwriting. Her hands shook as she opened it. The letter read, "If you Find this, it means you went through what I feared you would, Tasha. I have a sickness. I didn't want to tell you, I kept cheating not because I hated you. But because I hated myself, I thought if I died alone, it would be better than making you watch me fade. I'm sorry. I'm a coward, but I never stopped loving you. Tasha froze, she dropped the letter, the room spun, so. Divya was sick, was that why he pulled away, why he destroyed himself? She screamed. A loud, dry scream, then she laughed. And cried. She just sat there, rocking her baby, saying the same words over and over. I didn't know. I didn't know. But no one answered, only the wind through the prison bars, and the slow, steady breath of a sleeping baby who would one day ask, Mommy, who was my father? The prison clock ticked slow. Tasha sat near the far wall of the yard, rocking Shima gently as he sucked on a cloth dipped in water. His feeding bottle was still missing, but she had learned to improvise and to survive. Each day in prison was a quiet war. Whispers still followed her wherever she walked. Her back ached from sleepless nights. Her heart still carried the weight of the letter she found in Divya's Bible. She had read it over and over. Each time, it cut deeper. Her husband had been sick and dying, and all the while, she had been fighting a ghost she didn't understand. But life in prison did not slow down for grief, it only got harder. One evening, while Tasha bathed her baby using rainwater collected in a plastic bowl, she heard footsteps behind her. Before she could turn, something sharp grazed her back. She screamed. A hand grabbed her hair. You think you're special because you carry a child. A harsh voice said. Every night that baby cries, I can't sleep. Today, we end it. It was Priska, the scar-faced inmate who had always watched her with cold eyes. Tasha fell to the ground, shielding her baby with her own body. Please. Not my child. Priska raised a metal spoon sharpened into a knife, but before she could strike again, another prisoner, Auntie F., the oldest woman in the cell, jumped in. Stop this madness. F shouted, dragging Priska away. She's not your enemy. The enemy is the life we lost. Priska spat on the floor and walked away, but her words echoed in Tasha's ears. Sooner or later, that child will suffer the pain you caused. Tasha held her baby close, crying silently. Later that night, she cleaned her wound with a piece of torn wrapper and whispered to her son, You must grow. Even if I bleed for it. You must live. 2 weeks passed, the prison gates opened one morning, and a warder called her name, Tasha. You have a visitor. She froze. Nobody had visited in months. She walked slowly, hands trembling and heart pounding. In the visitor's room sat a man in a fine shirt, holding a briefcase. He looked too clean for this dirty place. He stood up as she entered. Good day. My name is Barrister Khalifa. I was sent here by someone who believes in your story. Tasha frowned. Who sent you? The lawyer smiled softly. Your husband's brother. Albino. He recently found a journal your husband wrote before he died. It proves you didn't mean to kill him. And more than that, it says something else. Tasha's legs weakened. She sat down slowly. What else? The lawyer opened the briefcase and pulled out a page. It was Divya's handwriting. If anything happens to me, I want Tasha and my child to have the house. I failed her too many times. Let this be the one thing I get right. Tasha covered her mouth, tears poured freely. Is it my husband that wrote this? The lawyer nodded, and Albino is willing to help file a fresh appeal. He believes you deserve a second chance. Tasha couldn't speak, she just wept. The lawyer handed her a white envelope. It's not much, but Albino said you can use it to buy baby things through the wardens. Tasha took it, her hands shaking. Why? Why now? The lawyer replied gently, some people wake up late. But it's better than never. As she walked back to the cell, the sun looked a little brighter, for the first time in years. Something like hope touched her heart. She kissed her baby's forehead and whispered, maybe God has not forgotten us after all. But even in hope, danger still lived. Priska watched from the shadows, her eyes dark with jealousy. It started with a scream, then came the sound of something crashing, metal hitting metal, and suddenly, the prison turned into a storm. It was early morning. The air was thick. Rain had not fallen, but the clouds looked like they were carrying too much pain. Just like the woman inside, Tasha was breastfeeding Shima in a quiet corner when the shouting began, enough is enough. Someone yelled. A group of inmates had started a protest, shouting about bad food, no medicine, and too much beating from the wardens. Years of silence were finally breaking. And when pain speaks, it speaks loudly. Before long, some women began throwing plates. Others broke broomsticks to use as weapons. Buckets of dirty water were poured on officers. Even the kind ones ran for cover. Tasha panicked. She held her baby tighter, stood up, and tried to hide in the toilet area, but the crowd pushed her. Move, jaw. Someone shouted, hitting her shoulder. The prison yard was wild, smoke from burnt rags filled the air. Doors were banged. Cries came from every corner. Then Tasha heard it, the cry of her baby, but not in her arms. Her hands were empty, her wrapper had come loose in the chaos. She screamed, Shima. Her eyes searched madly. Her heart beat faster than a drum. Then she saw her, Priska, running through the crowd with a baby wrapped in cloth, her baby. Priska! Give me my child! Tasha cried out, but Priska didn't stop. She was heading toward the back gate, where the prison wall had a loose corner. Guards were distracted, everything was falling apart. Tasha ran. She didn't care if she was pushed, slapped, or hit. Blood dripped from her foot where she stepped on broken plastic, but she didn't stop. She screamed again, Priska. I beg you. Not my child. Don't punish him for my sins. Priska stopped suddenly, turned around slowly, her eyes red with anger. You think you're better than us. You walk like pain belongs to only you. But I lost a child too. My son cried because of my boyfriend's beating. And nobody helped me. Nobody believed me. Tasha fell to her knees. I'm sorry you suffered. But don't make my son pay for it. He's all I have left. Priska looked at the baby, then at Tasha. She shook her head, and she dropped the baby roughly on the ground like an old rag. Tasha crawled, screaming, dragging her bleeding knee on the concrete until she reached her baby. He was crying, scared, confused, but alive. Tasha wrapped him back with her wrapper and held him tightly, crying harder than he was. Even the sky cried that moment. Rain poured like judgment. Priska was pulled away by guards. The riot ended. But something inside Tasha had broken again. That night, as the prison returned to its cold silence, Tasha sat in the corner of her cell and wrote another letter for her son. My son, Shima, the world is not kind. But you must still be kind. You were born in the middle of pain, but you will not grow with it. If I don't make it out of here, ask your uncle Albino for the letters. In them, you will find my truth. I love you beyond this prison and this world. Your mother, Tasha. She folded the letter and hid it in the cloth of his wrapper. She kissed him goodnight and prayed harder than she had ever prayed. Tasha finally gets her appeal date, and Barrister Khalifa, who never loses any case that came across him, with his wisdom and with the help of Divya's letter, made it possible for Tasha to leave the prison yard. She was released. Tasha stood outside the gate of Albino's house, watching the street full of people and cars. The world felt so big, and yet, it felt so small. The life she had known in prison, with all its pain and struggle, felt so far away, but still so close, living in the back of her mind. She had been free for 2 weeks. She had started small. Finding a job. Looking for a safe place for her and Shima to live, but no matter how hard she tried, the weight of her past followed her. People stared when they saw her. She could feel their eyes on her, whispering and judging her. "You see that one?" A woman at the market said. She was in prison for crying her husband. Another woman, a mother with 2 children, added, "I heard she poisoned him because he cheated on her. Now she's free, with no one to help her." The words stung. Each whisper was like a knife, but Tasha didn't look away. She didn't hide anymore. She had been through the worst. And now, she had to face the world, even if the world wasn't ready for her yet. Shima was adjusting to his new life. He loved his new school, even though the other children often stared at his mother with curiosity. He made a few friends, and Tasha couldn't be prouder. Every night, when she tucked him into bed, he would whisper, "Mommy, I'm happy we're out of the big house." She would kiss his forehead and reply, "Me too, my son. Me too." But deep inside, there was a pain she couldn't escape. Shima had started asking questions about his father. "Mommy, when will we see Daddy again?" He asked one evening, his small hands holding his toy car. Tasha's heart skipped a beat. Divya, her husband, the one who had died, leaving behind nothing but a letter and regret. She sat down beside him. "You don't need to worry about your daddy, baby." "But I do. I want to know who he was. Was he a good man?" Tasha paused. It was the question she had been dreading. She didn't want to lie to him, but she didn't want to hurt him either. She hugged him tightly, thinking back to the night she found Divya's letter. She had tried so hard to make their life together work. She had loved him and had hoped he would change, but now, she was left to raise their son alone, without the truth that might have given him peace. "I'll tell you the truth one day," she whispered, "but for now, just know this, your daddy loved you, even though he made many mistakes. We don't carry his mistakes. We carry love." Shima nodded and closed his eyes, a small smile forming on his lips. One evening, Tasha received a letter from her lawyer, Barrister Khalifa. She opened it quickly. It was an invitation to a community meeting, one that would allow her to tell her side of the story. She was nervous. The thought of facing her community, the people who had judged her, scared her, but she knew she had to. She had to tell them the truth. She couldn't live in silence anymore. The meeting was held in the village square, under the tall mango tree. People gathered in small groups, talking and whispering. When Tasha arrived, they stopped talking. Her heart raced. But she stood tall. Barrister Khalifa was beside her, but this time, it was her voice that needed to be heard. She took a deep breath and began, "I stand before you, not as a criminal, but as a mother. A woman who loved her husband, despite all his mistakes. A woman who fought for love even when it broke her. I didn't poison my husband because I hated him. I did it because I was broken. But I am not broken anymore." Her voice shook at first, but as she spoke, it became stronger. "I made a mistake. And for that mistake, I paid. I lost everything. But I learned something along the way. Pain can either break you or make you stronger, and I'm here today, stronger than I've ever been." The crowd was silent. They looked at her, unsure of what to say. Tasha continued, "I was lost in my pain, but I found a new purpose. That purpose is my son." And I'm asking you, my people, to see me for who I am now, not for who I was. Tears rolled down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. She let them fall, because they were a part of her story. Finally, a woman stood up from the crowd. We've heard your side, Tasha. And we see the pain in your eyes. Maybe it's time we stop judging you. Slowly, one by one, the people in the crowd began to nod. Then a man spoke. I'm sorry for the things I said about you. I didn't understand. You are not the same woman anymore. And then, the most beautiful thing happened. The people who once whispered now walked to her, offering their hands and their forgiveness. They hugged her. They embraced her, and accepted her back into the community. She wasn't just Tasha the widow or the woman who killed her husband. She was Tasha, a survivor and a mother, a woman who had made a mistake, but had learned and grown from it. Days turned into weeks. Tasha found a small shop in the village and opened a little business selling fabrics and handmade goods. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep a roof over her and Shima's head. And enough to show the world she could stand on her own, and Shima was thriving. He no longer asked about his father. He was starting to see the love that surrounded him, and he knew, deep down, that he was not defined by the mistakes of the past. He was defined by the love his mother gave him. One evening, as they sat in front of their little home, watching the sun set behind the hills, Shima looked up at his mother and said, "Mommy, I want to be like you when I grow up." Tasha smiled and kissed his forehead. "You don't have to be like me, my son, you just have to be the best you." And in that moment, she knew that the broken pieces of her life had come together in a way she never expected. She had lost so much. But she had gained more than she ever thought possible. Her past would never disappear, but it no longer controlled her. She was free, and, more importantly, she had found peace.